Okay, are we back? We're trying this again. Let me know if the microphone is working better this time. Okay, so let's try this again. I am Kendra Ruth from The Hero Spouse. We are going to answer, I have 5 questions for you today about marriage and midlife crisis. I'm going to go back in and refresh my screen, make sure everything is functioning well, and post the link to Stand Up and Thrive because my membership closes again on this Thursday at 9 o'clock. Let's see. So hold on, got to get a different link up again. And anybody out there, just make sure, let me know if it's working because I can't hear it from my end. So hold on a sec while I grab the correct link. Sound is good. Thank you. Oh, good. Okay, at least that's good. Okay. So, link to Stand Up and Thrive is up there. And I'm going live on YouTube and the public Facebook page. I tried to put an event over at the private Facebook page. So if you're over there, hopefully you'll make it over to here. Otherwise, there is a recording. And I sent out an email notice that should have gone out just about 10 minutes before. So let's get going so we can get through these, because one of them is a reference to a question from last time. Somebody wanted me to go over some parts, and it was actually something from my it'll go back to my own story, and I might go, it might take a little longer. So that one little, and it's something I've referenced a lot, but it's since it's parts of my story, it'll take a while. So number 1, we have an anonymous female left behind and forward moving spouse with a bomb drop of May 15th, 2023, a date of marriage of 2003, and she is not familiar with either contact type or energy levels. She says, I've read the books, I've watched the social media clips, and reviewed a lot of the personal Facebook stories, but I still haven't found out what happens when the left behind spouse matches or exceeds the MLCer's energy and activities. When my husband went on his 3-week bender with drugs and prostitutes, I got him to come back to the house by telling him he needed to take care of the dogs because I had to travel. He did. Since then, I've traveled every few weeks for somewhere exotic while he's not gone anywhere for the last 6 months. When he started to get fit, take on new hobbies, buy new clothes, make new friends, I did all that and more. When he started toying with the idea of looking at women on dating apps, I met a few guys in real life, including a couple of extremely successful men who asked me out. This last part really irked him. Well, yeah, I bet it did. What happens when the left behind spouse matches or exceeds the MLCer's activities and energy? Well, why are you doing it? That's it sounds like you're just competing with him and you're doing it manipulatively. And if you're out meeting guys, so when one person cheats, is it right for the other person to cheat? Is the first question that I have. Does one wrong make a how does it go? Do 2 wrongs make a right? Do 2 rights make a wrong? You know, I think you know what I'm trying to say. You said you went on dating apps. So why would that bring somebody back? Yeah, sometimes that does, sure. But does it bring them back in the right way? Does it bring them back in a trusting way? It's just a manipulative tool to get somebody to say, see, I can be better than you. I can do it better than you. When you're dealing with this, what we want to do is understand midlife crisis rather than try and show them, I can do midlife crisis better than you can do it. So your question is, I haven't found what happens when you match them. Well, first thing, they might say, well, what's the point of, I don't need to come, I don't need to come back. Or he has come back and you've gone off the deep end. So what is there? Or if they're having if somebody has left for an alienator. So many of ours have left for an alienator. They're not coming back because you give an ultimatum, hey, I'm going to go out and party and you better get back here because I'm going to party harder than you can. But no, I'm in love with this. I have a limerent object. Well, I got my own limerent object. Well, the answer, you know what it is phew, good for you, because I have one. And if it's limerence, they're going to hold on to that. Now, yes, sometimes they get scared. And do you know what that does? It means that you bounce between two people. It causes this triangle. It causes the soap opera drama. That's what happens when it does that. It just causes drama and conflict. It's more on the drama triangle. What you're talking about is manipulation, not standing with grace. So you're wondering what happens. What happens is soap operas. You're describing a soap opera. What happens in soap operas is it's tit for tat rather than grace for that. You apply grace. You don't match MLC with MLC. So we talk about gal and getting a life. We talk about self-care and self-focus. But self-focus doesn't mean go out and party. Now, if partying is for you, and if it's healthy, then that doesn't mean there's something wrong with it. But if it is an avoidance, self-focus is not meant to be an avoidance. When we do self-focus, we're talking about self-healing. We're talking about making yourself a priority. So, for example, and I'm going to use women as the example because women suck at this more than men, and mothers suck at this more than anybody, because mothers are always taking care of somebody else, or, well, not always. Let's not use universal modifiers, sorry, but we're worse at it because there's always somebody. And when this person doesn't need it, the other kid needs it. When this person, the other kid needs it. And so sometimes it's like 3 kids need 3 separate things. And we're trying to put out several different fires, or start one and put out another, all at the same time. And where is there time for us? Including self-healing, including pampering, things we want to do and things we need to do for ourselves. And so self-focus could be going to the doctor and taking our medicine. And I don't mean medicine for mental health that people say, oh, you're crazy, lady. I mean, you know what? You have a heart condition and your blood pressure is high. I mean healthy things. I mean your feet are tired and you have a bad back and you need surgery and you're putting it off. It's not only I needed a spa day. Not that there's something wrong with a spa day, but sometimes it's getting sometimes the pedicure is not about making your toenails pretty. But I remember my grandma taking care of my Aunt Dort, her older sister. Dort was 9 years older. Dorothy Dort was 9 years older than grandma, and taking care of her toenails. Her toenails were pyramids, like triangles, and they were bright yellow, and I couldn't figure out how she could get those in her feet. And Dort needed these pedicures for foot care. Foot care. You know, it was part of her health care. So we need to do things that are about self-focus and healing, not simply, I'm going to do this because I get to do things too, and I have a right, and it's fair is fair. That's being manipulative. So what happens when you do this is it's just 2 immature people is what's happening, and neither people are growing. And neither people are figuring it out. So maybe you stay together. Maybe you don't, but you don't grow. And if you stay together immaturely, where are you in 5 years, in 10 years? Are you still together as immature people? And what happens when one of you figures it out and then goes into a crisis, or starts to grow but doesn't grow enough and falls into a crisis because, like, this isn't working for me. I need something more out of life. It's not sustainable. That's the problem with it. I don't really know if that helps you out. Okay? Because what you need to do is you need to change the attitude that might be going with your actions, what you're doing, why you're doing this. And then change your approach. Then go, what do I need to do? Okay. Okay, we're going to move on to number 2. Number 2, we have an anonymous male left behind and forward-moving spouse with a bomb drop of March 1st, 2024. He has a date of marriage of 2002. He has an at-home MLCer who is a high-energy replayer. He says, after 17 months of high energy, my at-home MLCer is slowing down. She's home more and is doing more around the house. She's reaching out to me more about issues with the kids and the home. She filed in March of 2024, but she hasn't brought it up since filing. So, understand, she's home more, doing more around the house, but there is divorce in process, even though she's not doing anything about that. But it's filed. She confronted me with it about that divorce the other day. I wrote that I don't agree on my response to the paperwork, and she said that I'm holding her back from living her best life, and that I should just move out. I explained I will not move out and let the alienator move in or come and go as he pleases in our house around our children. So his question is, since she's home more, doing more around the house, is this just more cycling? I was hoping that these touch and goes were a good sign. Do they need to just let off this steam from time to time? I'm not going to lift a finger to help her, and I'm good at detachment level. So we talked about this the other day okay. But I wanted everybody to hear this because we don't often have an left behind spouse who is female. Usually they are the more at-homers, but we don't have who is filed for divorce, but they are in the home. Okay. But she's starting to, she's more being nicer. She's coming home more. Is this cycling though? And I said, it's not that it isn't cycling. I don't want to call it that. And maybe I don't want to call it that simply because when they're not at home, we recognize this cycling. They come, they go. And by come and go, I don't mean move in, move out. It's just we get a different energy around it. We feel it differently. They're cycling. They're being nice. And so maybe that's the same thing, but maybe it's not. And so I didn't want to call it that just because it feels differently when they're home. And so I want you to make sure to stay detached. And this is for everybody listening because we've talked. Okay. But I want everyone to hear this type of thing because there are others of you out there, other men who are with their wife at home and other women with their husband at home. And especially if you have a divorce in process, but you're living at home with them. Oh my goodness. That has got to be it's all a horrible situation, but how do you do that? I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry that you're in that situation. So why are they seeming more easy to live with? Why are they being nicer? Why are they coming around more? Sometimes maybe it is because things are getting settled. Well, the divorce has been filed. Well, that part's done. Of course, in this case, she hasn't said anything more about it, although she brought it up the other day. But since March, she brought it up. She filed, but hadn't done anything until recently. But that sometimes when you get each little hurdle done, you can just breathe a little bit more of a sigh of relief. That's done. That's done. That's done. So you don't have to feel as scared and much things, all of the toxic energy that's in you, you let a little bit of it out. Okay, so that's some of it. Some of it might be, I'm going to be nicer while we're here together. Maybe you're going to be nicer since we're still working things out. That's not necessarily how I felt with this situation and the energy going on. Sometimes in this situation, you've been really detached. You've been really calm. You've been setting good boundaries, very firm with it. And that's the other thing is, especially as a stander, we just have to do that and bide our time. And unfortunately, what happens in these situations is time takes longer. Divorce, if it's filed, goes faster than MLC does. And we want you to just be very patient, but the divorce is likely to happen if there's a divorce filed. And MLC is likely to continue, and your job is just to be patient. But the situation is going to change in that now you're probably not going to be in the same house. So while you're there, be as patient as you can, be as gracious as you can, be as conciliatory as you can, or as you should. And when I say conciliatory, you have to stop at doormatting. It is really hard because you set that boundary. You stop and say, no, you know what? That's not appropriate. One of the things I really want you to be careful about, or I want you to do instead of that, is you do the I believe in you. I have faith in you. You are a good person. That's something that we can do without being doormatting as much. That's something we can say, you know what? I'm not going to, give you this much money, but I believe in you. You can do these things. You are going to be great at this. Or there are times where, I am going to give you these things. You've been a great mother, and I'm going to support you. How you show faith in that person and that you believe in their abilities, because somebody's got to believe in him. One of the things I say about MLCers, they don't believe in themselves. So how you're showing that to her is going to be very important. How you treat them, because they do remember that later on. And they come back to that. And then that really good boundary that you've been doing with and saying it specifically. I'm not moving out because I don't want to give that guy, the person you're having an affair with, free reign to be around our, not just my. I like it when we point out that it's our children and our house. And that's not appropriate. So I like that, but you do it with grace. You do it with a soft but firm tone. So I like it, but we have to be careful that we balance all of these things. Is she cycling? I just don't call it that. And and it could be cycling. Okay. So that might be really confusing, but remember that midlife crisis lasts so long and it stretches our patience. So we have to be Elastigirl and Elastiguy and just stretch the patience. Okay. Because it is going to be very trying. And one of the things, and I might be saying this a couple, because I think there's another one that I really want to talk about this on, is when I get to this kind of thing, and it is the last one, number 5, where I think I was really going to talk about this. So I'll go over it again. But what I'm going to liken back to is when I hear the stories of others that have come back and reconciled, and what they talk about the patience they had to have, where they had this big gap where they thought, I can't do it anymore. It's over. I don't know what to do now. And that gap, the stretch and the long, they hit that mark. And it was at 3 years or 4 years, or it lasted for 2 years in the middle of this big, at a 3-year mark or a 2-year mark. And I'm not saying that to scare you. I'm saying it actually to reassure you that when they thought all was lost, even though things weren't bad, it wasn't now always when things were getting worse. Things felt like they were getting better, but they weren't getting better enough. Or they felt stagnant and stale. They just weren't bad, but they weren't great or good. And right now, especially, you're not much. This situation isn't much past a year. We know it's still gets worse first. Okay. So she's cycling, but it's not getting super, super bad because you've been so detached. You've been so calm with this. You've been such a stable force, which is really hard for her. It would be so much easier if you were just a jerk. So thank you for not being one though. Okay. Okay, if anyone else has more questions, because I've been confusing on that concept, and they apply to your situation, go in. I've got more time on. I don't have any questions yet for Thursday, so be sure to keep submitting. Let's go on to number 3. So number 3, we have Gabby, if I'm pronouncing it correctly. If I'm not, I apologize. Gabby has a bomb drop of December 15th, 2021, a date of marriage of 1989. She says she has an off and on who is a high energy replayer. She says she had a loving marriage that they were together for 36 years, 3 adult kids and 3 grandchildren. Bomb drop was sudden. He said there was no spark. And he was living with the alienator after the 2nd day. He said they could talk and they were just friends. Oh, that makes sense, doesn't it? 4 months later, we were divorced on my request. He had another affair. Okay, so I'm assuming we're looking back in history now. The way this is, I was a little confused, but so I'm going to say he had an affair before in 2013, but it returned. So this is bomb drop was 2021. So 8 years previously, there had been an affair. So he had an affair in 2013. 8 years later, he left. If I'm not saying that right, you can let me know, or if it makes a difference in any of this, what I say. Okay. Now it says 4 months later we were divorced on my request. He had an affair in 2013, but now it says he had an affair in 2013, but returned. Divorce was orchestrated by her. So I'm going back to he had an affair. When he gets a chance, he wants to meet for a talk 3 times. Kids hardly see him. In October 23, he wrote a text that he would do anything to be in my life again. So, hold on. Okay, let's see. But bomb drop. Okay, bomb drop was 12/15/2021. Now we're at October 2023. Okay. So we're not quite 2 years. He wrote a text to say he would do kids, and then it's just a question mark. Kids, she writes in the holiday home. She writes in, it says, there's a typo. It says HD, the holiday home 5 miles from him. I don't think they were always together. She has him all over social media, but it's getting less. He never mentioned her. Will he wake up? He only has her friends now. Does it mean he only has her friends now, or her? So only her friends, not her, on social media? I was the one making the money for our comfortable life. He has been with her maybe long before bomb drop? Is that what it said? So do you mean that he had been with her a long time, or not maybe a long time? I'm not sure what you mean. She wants a big, happy family for everybody who thinks they are important. I went no contact because I was not going to respond to her text written for him. Okay, that's good. I like that. I said he's welcome for a talk after the affair. Okay, so I'm going to try and figure out. Good to go, no contact. Not responding to text written for him. Good. What you do is you tell, if you want to stand for your marriage, and yes, you divorced, but what do you really want? And what did you want? And what do you want now? Would you rather be with him? He said he would want to be with, he wrote a text saying he would do anything to have you in his life again. So what you say is, what does that mean? You're with someone else. What does that mean? You left me 2 years ago, and because of that, I divorced you. You divorced him very quickly. And did you want to divorce him? Did you feel that you had to divorce him? Was your understanding back then? Because when it happened to me, and I was very young, I was almost 33. I just thought, okay, well, I didn't want any of it, and this was only a week after bomb drop. I was like, I guess you have to get a divorce. I wasn't about to file, and I, learned, no, you don't have to, and people do survive these things within a few days. But I thought, okay, that means it's over. If somebody wants out, I just thought, there's nothing you can do. So, but there is something you can do. So I'm wondering in the first bit, 4 months later, you're divorced on your request. Is that because you thought there was nothing you can do since he'd left? Or is it because that was your line in the sand? Either one, there's nothing wrong with that. If that, there's nothing wrong with that. That can be your line in the sand. Now, have you changed your mind on your line in the sand, or are you willing to take him back and repair? Is what my question is. 2021, December, so let's call it even 2022. And it's now mid-2024. You're 2.5 years. You're 2.5 years past bomb drop, which isn't really, you're right in the smack in the middle of midlife crisis. Okay. So what do you want? Do you want to stand for your marriage? And I call that a marriage, you know, divorced or not, that's paper. Okay. I'm just confused on the divorce was orchestrated by her part. So I'm not really paying attention to that part with the affair 2013 stuff. Okay. What you say is, I am not going to contact you until she is out of your life. I will contact you when you choose to be an appropriate spouse. Now, you might have to change the language of that since there's an official divorce. Okay. That was the language I used, and it's a little clinical. So change the language, but keep it very firm. The black and white part of the language is, I will not contact you until you choose to be inappropriate. You know, if you want to be in my life, if you want to be in my life as my husband, I use spouse only when talking here. I would have used husband with him. You know, I just spouse for general terms when we're talking to both men and women. And so I like the now going, and you can tell him why you go no contact. I am not going to respond to somebody who, when she writes the text for you, or even if I can't tell, or if she might have written these texts for you. Say, I have to know she is 100% out of your life. You are not allowed to have any form of communication with her. When that happens, when you have chosen to get her out of your life, call me. Call me. There is an exit clause to your no contact, in other words, and you let him, you are allowed to let him know. And so you are allowed to break the no contact to let him know how to break the no contact. The irony. But otherwise, it's a very good no contact. Instead of saying after the affair, you just say, you get her out of your life. You cheated with her. You left me for her. You betrayed me. It was wrong. You know, and you know it was wrong. When she's out of your life, I am willing to talk to you again. I am willing to discuss repairing our relationship again, because I would love to do that. If you are willing to even consider what it will take, because it will take a lot of work, and it really will. And he may not be even close to ready to even have a concept of what that work is at this point. Because think about it, if he tried it now and you had expectations of what that would be, you may be very disappointed unless you realize what those, unless you know the expectations are. He's still in a midlife crisis and there might be back and forths. And you can say, hey, no back and forths. But if he's still in a midlife crisis, it doesn't work that way. So I want you to know what it entails. Okay. Understand what it entails. And then set it up. I like how you do a no contact, but let's work on how you set it up with him, some of the language you put around it. Okay? And see how it goes. Okay, let me look at our time, because I also have to figure out when I have to go get the kids. Okay, got 2 more, and I said this next one is the one that was going to be long, and I want to check and see. I'm also going to see fresh. Good, everything's coming in fine on all of the other screens. Just one, I want to check that everything is coming in okay quickly on YouTube really fast. Okay. Good. Okay. So this one just said, if you would like to go to our the last live, you can see she references timestamp 5726, which I believe is the last question. And she mentioned when I say sensing her energy. So what I'm doing is I often do that. I talk about the alienator in my situation is Mary, and I talk about her energy. And what I was referencing in that was when Chuck came home and took his affair underground, and how I no longer sensed her energy, and what it meant to not sense her energy versus sensing her energy. So she says, what do you mean by sensing your energy, and how to tell it's true, and I'm not crazy, and what should I do? He's in, now we're back to her situation. He's still hiding his phone from me. Whenever he goes to take a shower, he recognizes he doesn't want me to check on it. He says it's been a year since the last disclosure. And since he's not doing anything inappropriate now, how do we know? Okay. He has the right to have his privacy back. Is this a manipulation? Why can't I be sure she's off the picture? Well, it's not why. How? It's how can you be sure she's out of the picture? What has he done other than just tell you she's out of the picture? That's what's concerning right here. Okay. So sensing her energy. Let's talk a little bit about that. And so to do that, I have to go over things from my situation. So first thing, Chuck came and left 8 times in total. Let's see, 2005 through the start of 2005 and up to, it was January of 2007. So through about, not quite it was a year and 3/4 about. It was probably 6 times or so that he came and left. 5 or 6 were the first, okay? And then he came home for a whole year. So let's go over those first, before that full year. He would come home and he became what I called a 3-monther. He would leave after 3 months, and then he wanted to come home after 3 months. He did not always come home after 3 months because I didn't let him. But for starting at 3 months, he was trying to come home. Okay. But that's not the so much important part. It was when he was at home. So her energy was never really gone. But he came home a couple times during that period, really just as a test to see what he could get away with. So one of those times he came home for a week. Came home and we went on a weekend trip. He came home maybe, let's say, on a weekend or Monday. And so the next weekend we went on a weekend trip. And I told him he had to leave because the weekend trip was full of manipulation, taunts about her. I recall him getting gas, him texting her. I think he was texting, unless he was actually talking to her on the phone, but he had his cell phone out, and while getting gas. Dude, I can see you. It's not, that's why I think it might have been texting. I don't know that I could hear, but I mean, I'm sitting there watching you. He wasn't trying to hide it. I mean, I remember getting out and going, stop. And this was on the way, not even on the way back. It was a horrible trip, trust me. And so on that trip, I determined the purpose of him coming home was just to see what he could do. She might have even told him, hey, go home for a week, see what you can get away with. Let her kick you out. I don't know. I really don't. So that was one of his returns. So clearly her energy was there. That's what I mean by her energy right there. Other times he came home so that wasn't part of the 3-monther. Usually he came home and there was, in the beginning, remember first, they haven't progressed through their MLC very much. And so a lot of times when they come home, they're like, I can just be friends with him. So he would come home with the idea that, sure, my wife won't. My wife has told me I can't, so I still have to hide the relationship. But I can just be friends. I can keep this under the wraps. Or I can come home and continue my relationship. I'll hide it. And they figure out it doesn't work that way. You can feel that this is going on. They aren't good at hiding it. They aren't good at lying. They taunt and tease. And so that's what would go on. And so what would happen was he would come home And for a few weeks, he'd try. And then she would start to pressure him to come back. She would pressure him to move out, to leave. Because when he would leave her, he would sneak out. So oftentimes, not usually, but he would usually leave with, I think, more genuine intent to come home. Because he would sneak out of her house. There were a few times where she came to our house. She was circling our house, calling him, "You jerk, you left me." So she would be really upset. And I'm not trying to laugh at her, but still, she was the alienator, so she kind of made that bed. And he was trying to get away from her, so he would sneak out. And it would be a few weeks. Maybe he'd try to stay away from her. Then it would pick back up. Then after a few more weeks, and we're leaning into it becoming 3 months, she would start to pressure him. "You need to leave now. You need to leave now." And then for about, remember, we get to 2 months now. Then the pressure would ramp up. And he would start to bring that increased pressure home about how he was going to be leaving me soon. And he would taunt me with how he would be leaving me soon. For about 2 to 4 weeks before moving out, there would be this overt pressure. By overt, I mean he was speaking to me. "I'm going to leave you soon. Can't you tell I'm going to leave you soon?" Now, the question then comes, because I've said, if you know somebody is having an affair, you need to kick them out. Now, he is still denying he's having an affair. I don't have direct evidence. I just feel it, right? And yes, I know it. Of course I know it. The reason I didn't kick him out is because he was trying to get me to kick him out. He wanted me to do his dirty work, and he told me, "I just want you to do it. I want you to make the decision." And I said, "You have to do it yourself. You have to be it. I'm not your decision maker. I'm not your bad guy." He even at one point told me, "I just want one of you to make the decision for me." And I laughed in his face because it was hilarious. I said, "We've both made the decision. We chose you. I mean, not that you're the prize dude, but I chose you because I chose you when we got married. Technically, I had to choose you before we got married because we had this thing to plan, this wedding and, life together. But I chose you. She chose to steal you, but, so be it. You need to start making a decision for your life. You get to choose where you go. I already made the decision." And so that's why I wasn't kicking him out then. I kicked him out later so that was why I felt her energy, because he brought it to our house and brought it without trying to make it a secret. He didn't try to hide it. It didn't mean he said, "I'm leaving to see her." We've had some of them leave to see the alienator. And say, "I'm going to see the alienator. It's official. And you can't do anything about it." He didn't do that. There's one time, but that was the very beginning. And it was, "I'm leaving. I'm going to go see her because her daughter's in rehab, and there's a rehab thing, and I have to see her, and I have to do this for her daughter." And he'd just come home for like one of the first times. And I was like, "What do I do?" Okay. I was in a panic. But for the most part, no. That's the energy. Now, then he came home, and he was home for a whole year. One of the agreements when he was home for a whole year was that he was not to have a cell phone. It wasn't, first thing, I think until his cell phone, I couldn't get him to remove his cell phone completely because he had a contract. But his contract, he came home in January 6th. And his contract was up in April or May. So the first part of the agreement was we swapped cell phones. My dad, I know I famously don't use cell phones. My dad had given me a cell phone during Chuck's midlife crisis. So my dad paid for me to have a cell phone. And so we swapped cell phones. And then when his cell phone was up, he just didn't have a cell phone. And so he had one for a few months. So that was the agreement. And that was a non-negotiable agreement. So yes, in other words, I said, you're not allowed a cell phone. Not a big controller, but that was a very strict. We had multiple returns. This was something that was absolute. No cell phone. So he came home and he took his affair underground this time. And she kept it quiet. She did not try to entice him away. What happened was she gave him a cell phone when his cell phone was up. Later on, it was a full year later when I discovered him using a cell phone. First thing, there was absolutely no question about why he had a cell phone. I knew exactly why. He wasn't able to tell me. And I don't mean this by he lies. His memory to this day and then, he's not very good with things. It's like he didn't know if if she gave it to him immediately or when, which is probably true. She could have given it to him in June or May. He didn't, or July. He didn't know. That's probably accurate, knowing Chuck. So he couldn't answer, but he'd had it for almost the entire time, this cell phone. So her energy wasn't there. That doesn't mean I didn't think she was gone or not gone. Yeah, I thought she was gone, but I didn't think everything was good. Everything was solved is what I mean. I wasn't out there spouting, we solved it, yay! When I saw him with a cell phone, I wasn't shocked is what I mean. I was disappointed. Yeah. And when I saw him with a cell phone, her energy had just started to ramp up because a few weeks before that, I think he was getting lazy with that cell phone. His mother had gone to the hospital and the alienator worked on that wing. And he had a reason to talk about her. So he came home and he mentioned her. He talked about her, told me he saw her. Because I'm human. I'm not going to say you can't go to the hospital and visit your mom. And so now he had an excuse to bring her into our house, to bring stories about her to our house, and he did. So it was just creeping up. And that was the context. So that's what I mean by energy. I don't know what made her do it, how she was able to control herself for that year and keep herself under wraps, but she didn't bring it in her, she allowed the affair to stay secret. She didn't try to get him to move out. And if you have an alienator who is good at keeping secrets, Mary was not good at keeping secrets in the sense that she kept saying, no, you have to move out, you have to move out. And that creates an energy in him. That creates a dynamic in the other person. That creates a stress. And they can't handle it. It creates behaviors. It creates, he has to treat you a certain way because he's afraid of treating her a certain way. And there's a hyped up and the limerence, all of the behaviors that go with it. Even if it's not about treating that you could be really good at hiding all of this official evidence, but the evidence on your face and your behavioral evidence is harder to hide. And that's where the energy comes from. So I don't know if that helps, but let me know if that helps, how the energy is. So he's still hiding his phone whenever he goes to the shower. Well, Chuck didn't have a phone to hide. And then he did have a phone to hide, but I didn't know he had it. And he kept that phone in the truck. And he probably kept it there because if it ever rang, he didn't have it in the house to ring. So if he is keeping his phone secret or hidden so that, he's hiding it, that's a problem. Even if he is not seeing her, let's say he's not, why does he think he should keep it private? Why? Because he deserves his privacy? No, he doesn't. He doesn't have a right to have his privacy back until he has proven that he has been good with that privacy for multiple years. And the problem is, what I'm reading is that you haven't gone to marriage counseling for this. That's what I'm seeing. Because he doesn't understand it and he doesn't care. And a marriage counselor can help him understand and teach him the empathy to why he should care. He doesn't have it yet. He's not there yet. That's what marriage counseling is meant to do, is to train and teach. Help you, hold you in the feelings and build the empathy for each other, for why this person is hurting and what it takes. Because he doesn't have it. He thinks, if I'm not doing anything wrong, and maybe he's not. I mean, anything wrong in the sense of betrayal. Maybe he's being a jerk because he's not being empathetic, but in the sense of betrayal, he's not doing anything wrong, let's say. If I'm not doing anything, if I'm not doing the deed, then I should be able to have privacy. But she doesn't know you're not doing it. But I'm not. But she doesn't know it. But I'm not. Therefore, she should just believe me. She has no basis on what to believe you. The only basis she has is on when you weren't being good. It makes no sense that she should believe you. And then you continued the behaviors that you used when you were being secretive with that phone. No. So he doesn't have the right to his privacy. Is it I wouldn't use the word manipulation. That's not the type of word I would use. I would use the word that he is being, he is lacking empathy. He is being, I don't want to use the word selfish. That's already present, and the narcissism, all that stuff. He doesn't get it. He doesn't want to give up this freedom. He feels he's owed these things. No, that's not how it works. He is not, it's the lack of empathy where he's not trying to give consideration to the pain of the other person, of you. And that's where it is. That's what we get when we go to counseling. He's not even caring. And maybe counseling can help with that. Okay, that's the problem. You don't have to feel her energy. It's right now, it's the repair with him, and it's the repair in there. Because if you're feeling more paranoid, well, yeah, that might be a problem. But the thing is, he's also feeding your paranoia. So he does, and he's like, why is she so paranoid? She needs to work on herself. But then he's doing something, a behavior that creates your paranoia, and then blaming you for the paranoia. This is a cycle. How are you both going to get off of it? He's not helping you because he thinks you have a problem. And then you're not helping him because you think he has a problem. Counseling. It's above your pay grade. Okay. Okay. We are going to move on to the very last question. We have an anonymous female left behind and forward-moving spouse with a bomb drop of November 26th, 2020, a date of marriage of 2010. She has a clinging boomerang who is a high-energy replayer. She says, my husband and I continue to make progress. He wants to do things as a family all of the time, and we've even gone out a few times, just the two of us, on what most would classify as a date, but we never call it that. He's even started looking for a new job, as that was a huge barrier, working 60+ hours a week. However, he still cannot have a conversation with me about us, and he doesn't show affection towards me. No hugs, no compliments, no flirting. It's confusing. And how do we break out of being stuck? Okay, so this is the one I referenced where I think about all of the stories that you get to that part where you're stuck and things are getting better, but they're stuck. There's progress, but, oh, well, we're going on dates, but there's no talk about us and there's no affection. It's just, hi, friend, let's hold hands. Let's go to the movies together. Let's go on a date. Let's go get dinner. But let's not talk about us. Let's just, hey, what's happening? What is this? What is the meaning of this? So some of it is, there's a lot of things I want to talk about here. And first, if they feel that we are trying something, trying to get something out of it, waiting for something, wanting something, holding on to something, if we haven't fully let go, if we aren't fully we want to be invested in our relationships, but if we are too invested on getting them back and you have to come back and how this is it, then they're going to hold back. There's going to be a resistance. If we're not fully let go, and if we can fully let go to have an acceptance of a life without them, we have to be fully embraced. That's the word I want. Not accept, but I want accept is good, but embracing of the life without them. And without them could be co-parenting, but without them as our partner. Embrace the life without as our partner, and that they fully see that we are blissfully embracing that life rather than holding on to even a thread of the other one. And that doesn't mean that they can say we want the other life, but that we are still embracing. You can embrace something and still want another piece, something else also. But fully embrace this life, this other life, then there's going to be a resistance in them. And so what is it? How can you fully embrace this life that is, unfortunately for you right now, that single life? What can you do to do that so that he can continue to degrade some of the resistance he has? Okay, some of that. The next piece also, and I don't know if this goes against the other, remember, he started looking for a new job. We know we've talked a lot about that. That's good. He cannot have a conversation, does not show affection towards me, no hugs or compliments. Now, do you give hugs and does he accept them? Do you give compliments? Are you flirting? Is there any, and so are these things where you do it and there's no reciprocity, or is it both ways? Are you ma and pa kettle then, because he won't allow those things from you? So, and the same with the other one, affection and that sort of thing. Because if you're doing a hug, that's an affection. Compliments can be seen as types of affection, depending on the compliments. Okay, so what are you giving that he could show reciprocity? But you have to give them without the expectation, because you can give a compliment while embracing the other life. Okay, and that's what you have to figure out, is that balance. How can you give that balance of the compliment of embracing that other life? I want to see you, that you're, I know it's like this, what is that terrible cigarette commercial for women that was in the 70s? The head tossed back and she had a cigarette in her mouth, but so that part was disgusting. But the meme, I think, but laughing and I just want you to seem carefree, and you can be that and give him a compliment. You can be that and give him a hug, maybe. You can do those things and work on yourself and let him see that you are just a happy person to be around, because you're happy with yourself and with who you are and with how your life is turning out. And maybe he'll want to be with it, but maybe he won't. And he already is wanting to be with it because he's making progress. He's wanting to do things. And note, look at your phrasing. He wants to do things as a family all the time. You didn't say we're doing things as a family. You said he wants. And then you said all the time. Okay? So that's a lot of progress. The other pieces are coming. But you also have some resistances, things to drop and to let go, because you have to embrace this other piece. Yeah, how are you going to embrace the life that is just you, the life that is just who you are, that life inside of yourself? He sees you embracing that. He sees you embracing you, giving yourself a hug, think of it as, and who you are, And that's the letting go of the other thing, the letting go of having to have him home, letting go of, because he still might feel a sense of, I have to be there. And that sense of have to is just, that's what there's a resistance to. And it might not be something he can verbalize, but we feel it. We feel that that's an energy feel. So it's part of that. It's still an embrace. It's still, and what that means is it's you work. That's work on you. While also recognizing what I said. Those success stories, they get to this part. They get to this part. It's that long stretch, those dog days of summer. And I think one of the things they realize in that is what I'm saying is during that long stretch is when they realize there's more in them that they have to work on. And that's when they have to work on, and they realize the little last bits of their own healing and the last bits of, I have to embrace more of me and myself and make myself important. And so you have to do those last bits, okay? Do that. He's coming around, but it's slow going. Because look, it was 2020, but it was the last bit of 2020. So let's go almost 2021. But you are coming on 4 years. 4 years. You're at 3.5, a little more. You're coming up to 4 years pretty soon. And it feels like it's been forever, doesn't it? It sure feels like it. And this feels like that long stretch. Maybe it is. But it's just going to take the patience, and during this time to embrace yourself. What can you do that is just joyous for you, that you would enjoy, and that would be a light for you? And don't just do it because, hey, look, he's going to see this and think, look, that's manipulative. But what can you do that you would love? Really, that would make a difference in your life. Think about that, okay? And then be patient. And then when you're done being patient, you realize you're not done being patient. You're never done being patient. Okay, I gotta go get the kids. I will see you again on Thursday. I will see my Thrivers today at 2 o'clock for our meeting. And if any of you want to join Thrive, I can see you as well. Okay, bye-bye.